Hello, Malcolm here, and welcome to Tuesday Teaching Tips. It's episode 283, and our title today is Should Sermons Be Relevant? Should sermons be relevant? Now, you may be forgiven for thinking, well, the answer to that is short and sweet and simple and obvious, which is yes, of course, sermons and teaching in general should be relevant. Why are we even asking the question? Well, I'm asking the question because although I have sat through too many sermons and lessons that were not in the least relevant, and I may have even preached a few of those myself, of course I have, nonetheless, we need to think about whether relevance is a goal or whether it's a tool, I would say. So these thoughts for you today, and I hope they're helpful, are prompted by a book called The Givenness of Things by Marilynne Robinson. I've been reading it piecemeal over a little while. It's quite a deep book. It takes a bit of digesting. And in the most recent chapter I've been reading, she's writing about many things, including sermons and relevancy. So I've got a couple of thoughts from this book, and I've got a couple of quotes, and then I'd like to know what you think. So I'm going to talk about two things today, because in sermons, I believe, we do speak at least of two things, which is that we speak of the sacred and we speak of life and death. So first quote from Marilynne Robinson's book. She says this on page 141. My tradition, she's talking about the Calvinist preaching tradition, my tradition places great importance on the sermon. And I think you and I do too. If you're watching this, I'm sure you do. And I go to church to hear a sermon. I go in hopes of hearing something that acknowledges this deep, old human intuition, the sense of the sacred. Often, I don't hear any such thing. She's honest about some of the sermons she hears, and truthfully, sometimes that's true for us too. Often I don't hear any such thing, but sometimes, more remarkably, I do. A good sermon, and she's talking about sermons here that she would say gives us a sense of the sacred. A good sermon is a pure, rare, strangely unworldly gift. I love that phrase. She writes beautifully. A good sermon is a pure, rare, strangely unworldly gift. She's emphasizing unworldly there, the sacred, rather than relevance. Now, our Western environment in which I live, at least, and perhaps you do, I believe over-elevates the solving of mystery. And that leads to an impoverishment of our spirits, because the scriptures are meant to educate and teach and give us knowledge, but they're also meant to lift our spirits, which is something rather more mysterious than relevancy, shall we say. I'm glad that we've solved so many mysteries in this world, the mysteries of a lot of medical issues, so that today I'm much less likely to die of pneumonia or some other bacterial or viral infection than my ancestors. I'm glad those mysteries have been solved. But in our preaching, isn't God someone more to be described than explained? So the first thought for you is this. Isn't this more important than relevancy, that we speak of the sacred? And the second is that we speak of life and death. Your second quote here from Marilynne Robinson's book from page 146. She says this. My church is across the street from a university where good souls teach with all sincerity the factually true, insofar as this can really be known, the history of nations, insofar as this can be faithfully reported, the qualities of an art, insofar as they can be put into words. But to speak in one's own person and voice to others who listen from the thick of their endlessly various situations about what truly are or ought to be matters of life and death, this is a singular thing. For this we come to church. So again, she's emphasizing here that we're not looking to have all the answers to things. We're not looking for a sermon which necessarily connects with the history of nations or things that are factually true or the qualities of an art. These things are important, and it's good for people to speak about them, but don't we come to church for something more than that? We come for matters of life and death. It is in church, it is in our lessons, our sermons, that we address these matters in a way that is singular and different. Isn't that right? So perhaps the question is, what do the scientific and the historical facts point to? That's the question in a lesson, isn't it? What do the artistic qualities reach for? What do they reflect about God, about life and death? It is of this that you and I speak, isn't it? Matters of life and death. And yes, that's a little scary in the sense that what a responsibility, because any of us, to some degree, can lay out some facts about life and science and history, and we could describe and talk about qualities of art if we have that gift. But we are singular people, bringing a message about a singular God from a singular book that is amazing and different, is It is unique. Nothing to compare it to. So let's bring in issues of factual, historical relevance and the qualities of art, but let's bring them in to elevate this and indeed who this speaks of. The one who made history, the one who's creative and allows us to have these gifts to create art, the one who made all the science that we now describe with the facts, at least, that we know it as much as we know what they are. So 2 thoughts for you today about this. Is relevance significant? Well, yes, but are we more than that, speaking of the sacred and speaking of life and death? One last quote from the book, from page 150. She says this: "Day-old journalism is used for wrapping fish, but hymnals and Bibles are costly and durable." Day-old journalism. I mean, I don't know about you. I did grow up going to a fish and chip shop where people actually did use real newspaper to wrap up the fish and the chips. Of course, we don't do that anymore because it's not really healthy. But that's the idea. Day-old journalism can be used for that. It comes and it goes. The relevant, like that sense of relevance, comes and goes. But hymnals, Bibles, costly, durable. I think the challenge for you and me as speakers is to be relevant without being captured by the need to be relevant. Jesus spoke of contemporary issues connected with his audience, like in Luke chapter 13 and verse 4, where he brings up the issue of the sacrifices that Pilate had mixed with the blood. Pilate mixed with sacrifices in chapter 13, verse 1. And he talks about the tower in Siloam that fell on people. These were things that were in the consciousness of his audience. They knew about these things. So he could speak of those contemporary issues connecting to his audience. But I don't believe his goal was relevance in his speaking. The parables, for example, describe the kingdom, but they don't really explain it, do they? At least not in every detail, that's for sure. They don't answer every question. In fact, more than answering questions, the parables and most of Jesus' teaching stimulate questions. People crowded around him to hear him, but to ask questions or to go away thinking about what he was talking about. So perhaps we can look at the whole relevance issue like this. You and I, in speaking, use relevance to demonstrate that God understands our human condition and that he cares about it. His wisdom, revealed in Christ and in the scriptures, is certainly helpful in the here and now. So that's why we use relevance. But the demonstration of relevance isn't our goal. Our goal is to reveal the one who is beyond relevance, the one who can never be fully explained, but who can be worshipped, adored, and loved. So what do you think about this issue of relevance? I do think we should be relevant, but perhaps that's not our goal. And this speaks to us when we're preparing a lesson and thinking about the needs of the congregation or the needs of the culture and society around us. They've got to connect with the lesson. But ultimately, in the end, we want people to go away not thinking about relevance, don't we? We want people to go away thinking about Jesus, about God the Father, about the Spirit. We want them to know him. And because as they know him, they'll find how he can help them in their circumstances. But they don't worship him because he meets their needs, right? We don't worship God because he helps us and because he knows and understands. We worship him because he is God. And so it speaks to the significance of you and I growing and our ability to speak well of God, to speak accurately of God, and to speak to him as being mysterious, loving, concerned, and in that sense relevant, but still beyond our ability to fully grasp and even to describe. We are revealing God when we speak, more than explaining him. Let me know what you think about this issue of relevancy. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. So please leave a comment anywhere you hear or see this recording, and leave it publicly so that we can learn from each other, because that is when we learn best, when we're learning in community. If you have any questions about the Bible, or you'd like to see me speak on something, then please do drop me a line, malcolm@malcolmcox.org. You can also leave a message at the website, malcolmcox.org. If you'd like a copy of my free book on spiritual disciplines, then sign up for my newsletter at the website. And if you know anybody that might benefit from this, please pass the link on, hit subscribe, notification button, and all will be well. Until the next time, keep calm and carry on teaching. Take care, and God bless.